You're listening to a Comics XF podcast.
X-Men. Get it!
Hey everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Battle of the Atom. This is your weekly X-Men podcast where we rank every story from A to Z.
I'm Adam.
And I'm the bad boy of X-Men podcasting, it's Zach. Hey Adam, you know what I've been thinking?
What's that, my fellow nasty boy?
We're going to have some nasty boy thoughts later. What I was thinking, though, is that we need to subvert expectations and really go against what everyone's expecting. I think we need to be a bit more gritty and mature of a podcast than we've been in the past, Adam.
Wow.
I think we need to get rid of some of the legacy Saturday morning cartoon chains that have bound us. And I'd like to start.
Okay.
I'd like to start with this.
Sure, please. I don't know where you're going
I'm going to
with
get close
this.
to
Go
the
ahead.
mic so you can articulate it.
Yep.
Damn. Bastard. Hell. See, now we're mature adults, and
Wow.
this is not a thing for babies anymore.
Zach, that really brought me back to the live action Jim Henson Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie of 1990s. When Raphael stands on the top of a roof and yells, "Damn!" at the top of his lungs.
The thing is, and I don't remember the critic. I want to say Roger Ebert, but it may be just because he's the only critic I can think of off the top of my head.
Sure. Yeah.
Who described that movie as probably the best a Ninja Turtles movie could ever be.
It is rock solid. I mean, it's actually there are some things that don't line up, but there's some pretty good stuff from the original book in it. I give him props.
I will fully agree with him that it's probably they made two more of those and they were terrible. And then
Yeah.
Michael Bay made two, and then there was one animated one that no one talks about. And then they made a good one later.
This last year, they made a really good one.
A really good one that also has a weird amount of cusses from one guy.
It's pretty great.
Here's the thing. We all know that I don't think we all know it. I grew up in a very conservative household where we had to mute movies that had cusses in them and things.
Boy, sorry.
It's fine. I don't swear on this podcast. You could probably count the number of unbleeped swears that I've done on one hand in the 6 years we've been doing this show.
Yeah, I mean, we try and keep it pretty all ages for the most part.
Part of that's because I know how to turn it on and off. I can cuss a swear
Of course.
outside of this and do frequently. Adam, you've been around me in person,
Mhm.
not being recorded. So I'm not a prude about this. But because it's built into my psyche, I always notice it. I always notice when someone's cussing a swear that they shouldn't be.
And you noticed this where, Zach? Because I feel like we've lost the thread here. Where did you notice this?
I noticed this in the television series X-Men 97.
Yes, X-Men 97, which just wrapped up today. As
we're recording this.
Yeah.
I had to watch this children's television show before work this morning so I could record this podcast with you.
I have also watched it on my lunch break today, so I can weigh in. And Zach, I think that you and I have different ideas and expectations of what this show was supposed to be and our enjoyment levels of it. I think I enjoyed it a lot more than you did.
I think, here's the weird thing. I think you and me, and correct me if I'm wrong, and we'll get into this a little bit later in the episode. I think you and me are actually spot on aligned with our criticisms of the show. I don't think we disagree with each other. It's just how we took those criticisms and how they colored our view of the television program.
Yeah. I mean, I
we're
went in
pretty close on everything.
I went into it, having been a kid who watched the original animated series to the point where, I wore out my video recording of Night of the Sentinels, and I had transferred the theme song onto an audio cassette for listening on the go. I had very low expectations as to what this was going to be. So I was pleasantly surprised that it was okay. I mean, I know that some people were like, this is amazing. I didn't share that opinion. I thought it was fun, and it was a nice way to spend some minutes on a Wednesday for the last 10 weeks. So I enjoyed it. Do I think it's like God's gift to the world? And is it the best X-Men adaptation? And no, but it's very difficult to do an X-Men adaptation. And so I think they did an okay job. I enjoyed it. That's all I can say about it.
Well, you're going to have to say more later, because that's the theme of this episode, is adaptations of the X-Men cartoon.
Yes. Well, we are not doing a full hour on X-Men 97. We are talking about different times that the Marvel Comics group has done, because there are a variety of permutations of this universe. Yeah, this is Earth. There is an Earth number, I think, to this.
Earth numbers are for losers. I don't memorize them. I don't know them. This is the cartoon one. And if you're going to tell me, well, there's actually multiple different versions of the cartoon, shut up.
What is? I don't think this is the right TRN 566. That can't be right. That doesn't.
TRN is okay. I'm going to give you a little bit of background. When someone says, "Oh yeah, that's Earth TRN," all this stuff, that means nothing. That means some nerd on the Marvel fandom wiki assigned it a random number. I think they have like a logic to it. Doesn't matter. Assigned it a number and said this one for their continuity bookkeeping purposes, because it's too hard to say. Yeah, the cartoon one, the cartoon universe. That's the one we're talking about. The cartoon. We all know the cartoon. We're talking about the cartoon continuity here.
I don't like to ever disparage our friends over at the wiki, because they really do provide an amazing service.
Shocking. I don't understand the mindset that provides that service, but I utilize it.
Exactly.
It is open on. I have multiple tabs of it open at this moment.
That's right. I do too. So did you want to say anything else about 97 before we get into it? Because I know you had some stronger opinions about it than I did.
Okay, are we just going to lead with this? Fine, we can lead with it. I thought the show was fine. I thought the show was generally bad for 4 episodes, and then surprisingly good and bold for 1 episode that got my hopes up, even while I thought there were some structural and story beat flaws in that episode. It generally worked really well and told a really compelling story. And then I think it spent the rest of the season floundering and not really getting even close to those heights. And instead, mostly relying on... Okay, here's the thing. Here's something I thought about today. Spoilers for this show.
Yes.
Hey, Adam, what in this TV series would make you think that the way to defeat Mr. Sinister, who should not be in this, by the way, he's written in there just because they wanted to give a Jean and Madeline plot that kind of doesn't go anywhere you want it to go and gets pretty confusing and probably tries to do too much in too small of a space. And while the original animated series also went fast, it went fast with fewer beats per episode. That's the difference. It tried to do one thing, not 5 things.
You were asking me a question.
Yes. Hey, did you know that the way that Sinister's defeated is to make him be ugly?
Yes. Well, no, to age him to his actual age, I believe, was the way that they defeated him.
That's dumb and stupid. Not a stat. Like, okay, I'm sorry. 1, that's got nothing to do with Sinister. Like, in general, I've read a lot of Mr. Sinister comics. That's got nothing to do with him in general. 2, and this is kind of the more like important part when it comes to criticism of a piece of media. That's not an earned beat. That is not something that the show, up until this point, like, they didn't set that up. That comes out of nowhere, in my opinion.
Sure. Lots of stuff comes out of nowhere every single episode.
Yeah, that's bad writing. That's bad writing. And you get away with it because you're like, oh, look over there. It's T'Challa or it's Darkstar. Like, come on, look.
I mean,
Or,
as
look. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, as I noted multiple times on our Slack, what the structure of this show was at least 3 times an episode, making sure that you, as an X-Men fan at home on your couch, did the Leo DiCaprio pointing meme and went, ooh, 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 I know that one. I know that one. And that is why you have people over the moon about the show, because they are recognizing things and it is sparking that nostalgia clicking in their brain. And
listen, I'm
okay with that.
Kubert panel. I recognize the Kubert panel of Wolverine losing his adamantium.
Yeah.
I saw it. I know. I was like, oh, I see. You drew that. Great job, everyone. In those 2 episodes, from a storytelling standpoint, what was the consequence and the emotional beats of Wolverine losing his adamantium? Because in Fatal Attractions, which tells this, it's what they're ripping Fatal Attractions off for the last little bit of the show. That's fine. But it is immediately, it goes from Magneto does a thing that is so personal and so destructive that no one can abide it anymore, immediately gets brutally, has Charles Xavier cross a line as repercussion from it. And then the entire crisis is, oh my gosh, we got to make sure Wolverine doesn't die. Where this show goes, Wolverine had something. They don't even mention, I think there's someone out there that's like, what happened to Wolverine? That was a weird thing that Magneto pushed some metal on him. What did he do? It's not clear unless you have an active understanding of that comic.
Yeah.
And then it's like, Wolverine's in the med bay now.
Listen, like I said,
it's a weirdly paced show.
It is. And I think it works for a lot of people because it's a collage of, memories. And like I said, it's enjoyable. Do I think it's good per se? That might be stretching it. But I do think that there's a lot to enjoy about it. But people have such strong, vivid memories of the original cartoon, which also was not very good. I would say this was better than the original cartoon by a stretch.
I would say that you could probably make a successful argument that this is the best X-Men cartoon that anyone has made. Someone's going to say, well, Wolverine and the X-Men was good. And I'm saying, no, you should watch that. That's a bad cartoon.
Yeah.
I have never liked that. Someone's going to say the X-Men anime is good. And I'm going to laugh because I have an unfinished podcast about that. Someone's going to say X-Men Evolution's the best. And they're me. And that's because that's the one that hits my nostalgia button.
That's a very enjoyable show. I think
that's the one that hits it. But I don't know. It's like a show. The show doesn't know what it wants to be. It has an identity crisis. It wants to be for adults, but also still be a children's Saturday morning cartoon in all of these things. And it really throws me off. And I really, I watched the show being annoyed because I saw that it actually hit pretty interesting heights on the Genosha episode.
Mm-hmm.
And never really got back to it. And it also never unpacked the ramifications of the Genosha stuff in a way that I think people were expecting and hoping for, because that tells a more complex and interesting story than the story that they told in this one, which was the same Magneto and Xavier beat that has been told in every piece of X-Men media to ever exist. And I've seen it.
Yeah.
And I'm fine.
And you're bringing up something that is going to come up on this show, which is at least for folks like us who have seen so many different adaptations, that
yes,
when you start seeing adaptations, and it's like this infinity loop, it does start to just become tiresome. So with that in mind, I think we should get into these different stories that we're talking about today. Who among our amazing patrons requested this theme for this week?
This theme was recommended by Patreon supporter Dustin Pierce. If you want to be like Dustin, you can go over to patreon.com/Battle of the Atom. Reach deep down into your hearts and pocketbooks and toss a couple of coins into our coffers.
Thank you, Dustin.
It's like $5, guys. It's
Yeah.
$5. Come on.
Mhm.
It's $5. Look, here's what I'm going to say. You're going to spend $5 on an X-Men comic every month that you don't like.
That's a
You're
good
going to
point.
do it.
Yeah.
You're going to do it anyway. But I would hope, like this podcast, because you're listening to it. If you don't like this podcast, I'm going to tell you, turn it off. Like, you're not offending me. I don't even look at the numbers anymore. I used to keep detailed stats. I'm loosey-goosey now. I don't know.
If they got this far into this episode, they like the podcast. So
if they got this far into me being like, yeah, X-Men 97, not better than Shogun. I don't know what people are talking about.
That's a crazy take. All right. We are starting this week with Adventures of the X-Men 11 and 12. We need to just set up a little context for this because folks may not be familiar with this version of the book. This is volume 3 of what started as X-Men Adventures.
No, this is volume 4 of what started as X-Men Adventures.
Oh, okay. But they changed the name for some reason for this volume. So this is Adventures of the X-Men.
There is a reason. So the first 3 volumes are straight up comic book adaptations of episodes of the cartoon.
Yep.
That's what they are. This is in 1997. The cartoon is going to be, well, it's late 96, early 97. They know the cartoon's in the last season, and they're like, okay, well, we need to do, that's when they're doing these like 99-cent books that didn't really go anywhere and were generally bad. They were like, well, let's just do the cartoon, but continue it after season 3. So,
so the show is still going.
Show is still going, and they're saying we're skipping season 4 and season 5, and we're just doing another season of the show by Ralph Macchio and Lancey Yabbott. And it's just looking through Adventures of the X-Men. It does look like it's a lot of X-Men team up, but also a bunch of weird stuff that they're just like putting together. And it's like Ralph Macchio's like, I'm gonna do a silly one. Honestly, he's kind of doing the comic X-Men 92
a little bit
before X-Men 92.
A little bit. I don't know how knowing it is, but this issue 11 that we're starting with here is kind of like an X-Men 92 version of the Man-Thing Despair issue that we talked about not that long ago, which is interesting. That will then lead into kind of a Dark Phoenix-y finale.
You read it as Dark Phoenix. That's interesting because I see some Dark Phoenix in here, but do you know what I see more in 12?
What do you see?
Yeah, 11 really is, it's an adaptation of that Man-Thing story.
Yes, but with Storm and Jean, not Cyclops. And why is her name blanking on me?
Lee Forrester?
Hey, Lee Forrester, thank you. Sorry.
Yeah. It's fine. The one thing about that I do like is that you have Despair, who is trying to make everyone sad, and he does that by making himself. Oh shoot! Hold on.
Well, he's like a televangelist.
Hold on. No, not. He's a very specific pull. What he is, Adam? Do you know what he is? He calls himself Mr. Godfrey Silverton, and he describes himself as being, well, Silverton is just like silver tongue. Get it?
Yeah. No, I got that.
But part. Normally you wouldn't hear anything about that, but it's the line before where he describes himself as glorious. He describes himself as the glorious Gottfried Silverton. Glorious Gottfried is, of course, one of the characters in Jack Kirby's New Gods, who is, he is the propagandist.
I don't know anything about this.
You don't know?
Zach, it's a DC comic. I don't read
DC
DC
Jack
comics.
Kirby comic.
I don't care. I'm not reading Fourth World New Gods.
You should.
I should? Okay.
Yeah, it's historically very good. Like, everyone loves it.
Tell me about this
Hey,
glorious Godfrey.
this is the kind of stuff he says. It's, yes, friends, though life is ever filled with those who threaten us, it is anti-life, which gives us the power to eliminate them. The Holocaust is coming, the day of apocalypse on Earth, the day of dark side, who brings us the power for only us to use.
So he's Darkseid's propagandist, is what you're
Yeah, he's
saying,
Darkseid's
right?
propagandist. Though he's not the one who said, wait, is he the one that says Tiger Force at the center of all things, or does Darkseid call himself the Tiger Force at the center? Oh no,
Oh,
Darkseid's the one who calls himself the Tiger Force at the center of all things.
okay. Cool. That's great. I mean, he's blue.
Yes,
He's not
he is the
orange.
gift to us, friends, the cosmic hunting license, the right to point the finger or the gun.
Wow.
Who can stand against us, friends?
Okay.
I love Glorious Gottfried.
Hey,
He's
you know
great.
what? I will say props to, mostly editor Ralph Macchio, who has also written some of the books at the bottom of our long list.
We have to be so clear for new listeners, not the Karate Kid. It's a
No,
different guy.
not that guy.
It's just, it comes up so much.
It does.
And I don't want people to be confused.
No. So I appreciate that reference. I think that's great. Despair has like a big tower that he's getting everybody to go to, and Jean and Storm stop him, and then Man Thing, does his Man Thing to Despair. It's all very familiar. There's a little bit of a deliverance kind of thing going on at the beginning of this issue as well, where Jean and Storm are encountering some rednecks in the forest of a swamp, I guess.
Well, and we find out that Despair is working for somebody.
Yes.
He is working for the Dweller in Darkness,
Mm-hmm.
who is a Cthulhu who wants to. He's a Cthulhu from Thor and Doctor Strange stuff. Like, he's just a Marvel bad guy. He wants to destroy the universe.
Sure.
And he needs Despair to make people sad to do that.
Yes. So in the last issue of Adventures of the X-Men, which is number 12, he basically succeeds. We actually get the end and destruction of this particular timeline, but with the help of the Living Tribunal and the Macron crystal, I guess. Timeline just starts over.
So hold on. You know about Gallon of Ta, right?
Yes, Gallon of Ta.
And Gallon of Ta's hot mom, Taya. I was looking for Taya in this. I was like, is she in? Are they going to like mention Gallon's mom in any of this? And they don't, sadly.
No.
It's possible that Taya was drawn in this, but who's to say? So what ends up happening is like they know the universe is ending, so they're sending Galactus into the future. And at the same time, he merges with the sentience of the universe thanks to the Living Tribunal. And and Jean gets the Phoenix back, which she's like okay with. And in what is essentially, I mean, I know part of this is a riff from the Phoenix Saga anyway, but most of it, in my mind, as I read it, is like essentially the same ending as X-Men: The End. All of the X-Men give their life energy to Jean and the Mcron crystal, which that's why Man-Thing's in the last one, because the Mcron crystal is the nexus of all realities, just like Man-Thing's swamp is the nexus of all realities.
Yep.
Just like Havoc has a nexus of all realities, just like in his gut, if we remember.
He sure does. Yeah.
Long story short, they go unmake and remake the universe, and it's specifically remade as the opening of X-Men #1.
Yes. So
Like
kind of hits the reset button.
Jack Kirby. This is bold for what's ostensibly the end of the animated series.
It's definitely taken some risks. I breezed through some of the other issues on this, and this is about as risk taking as this series gets. I mean, a lot of it is very light, just like, hey, here's the Hulk, or here's this character. And this is, trying something a little bit new, and I didn't hate it. I thought the art was actually not bad.
I thought the art on this was better than other issues of the Adventures of the X-Men that I've seen.
Yeah, but Yancey Labatt's not doing a terrible job.
I actually like Labatt's stuff on the Man-Thing issue a lot more, but that's just because I think he draws a good Man-Thing.
Yeah, Yeah. But I mean, for a book that's arguably being tied to the cartoon series, it's trying something new. So I can give it that. Do I think it really all sticks together and works? No, I think
No,
it's
it's a Ralph Macchio comic. Say what you will about the man. I wouldn't call him one of the best writer editors Marvel has ever produced.
no. And we're going to see him again in a minute. But yeah, I mean, this is okay. I think we should try and rank it on our big old list. I mean, it's okay. I don't know what else to say about
It's
it.
it it is a competent comic book by a guy who's probably most well known recently for writing tie-ins to movies.
Hmm. I mean, arguably, this is a tie-in.
Oh right, yeah, that's what this is. Okay,
Sure.
it came back to me as I'm saying it. Yep, you're right. Uh, the thing is, Adam, we have a big old list. You
So
may have heard
big.
about it.
I have. I've heard all about it.
It's so big, it's so fresh, it's so clean. It is. It's long because we're on the road. We're on that road to 1,000. We have 909 X-Men stories that we have ranked from best to worst, with the best being the House of X: The Powers of 10, the 300th best being Cyclops Volume 3, 1 to 5, the 600th best being X-Men Colossus Bloodline, the 900th best is a strong word now, the 900th ranked story being Uncanny X-Men Holy War, and the worst X-Men story of all time. At 909 is 2099 World of Tomorrow.
Nice.
This isn't better than Colossus Bloodline at 600.
No, I did want to say that I think this is better than 868, the X-Men animation special graphic novel, which was just screen grabs of Pride of the X-Men.
This is creatively bolder than that.
Yes.
I would fully agree with that.
Yeah. Is it better than the Survival Guide to the Mansion at 800? I think it's at least
Yeah,
trying. It's trying
it is.
something.
The Survival Guide to the Mansion is not a narrative, and that's its biggest problem. It's neat though.
Yes. It's better than X-Men Noir at 782.
I would agree. Is it better or worse than X-Men Green?
Oof. Jeez. I want to say worse.
I kind of would say worse too.
Yeah, I'm thinking it might actually go below Spider-Man Storm and Power Man Smokescreen, the PSA comic.
This is better though than Wolverine Origins and Endings. That's the comic that introduces Romulus,
Oh yeah, yeah.
who is what you will become.
All right, so this is going to be our new 772 Adventures of the X-Men 11 and 12. And we are going to stick with Ralph Macchio, but go back in time a little bit. So this next story is X-Men Adventures Volume 3, numbers 10 to 13. And this is a very literal translation of episodes of the animated series that are trying their best to 90s-ify the Dark Phoenix saga.
It's by Ben Hara, and Mike Miller does a little bit on that last issue with Ralph Macchio still writing it. And boy, condensing Dark Phoenix Saga into 4 issues is interesting. However, they don't do that. What they do is they condense it into 4 episodes of a TV show, which more or less you could like. I feel like it's still the best. Like the X-Men animated series is still the best adaptation of Dark Phoenix that exists. Like that's kind of unquestionable.
Well, it's fairly close to the original story while still incorporating the 90s versions of the characters. So like one of the things that I was very curious about was just how close this book has to hew to the original animated series episodes. Like, does it line up? Do the issues line up per episode? And they
Yes.
do. They actually do.
Yeah.
So I pulled this open while I opened Disney Plus and threw the episodes on, and then it is pretty close. It is pretty close. It's a different visual interpretation than what you're seeing in the cartoon, but the writing is still scene for scene what it is that you're getting. And
It's
this is what I meant about adaptations of adaptations. This was really like breaking me in a way, because here I am sitting on my couch watching a TV show that's adapting Dark Phoenix, that's then
a
being
comic that for the longest time was the number one comic on our list. Just
Right.
to be clear, a comic we enjoy.
that's then being adapted into a comic book again that I'm now reading while I've got this on in the background. And I was just like, my Macron crystal blew up. Like, I was just like, what?
Because here's the thing. My brain can't accept when it changes to a different medium.
Sure.
Going from comic to a cartoon. I get it. I understand. I'm down to clown. But that cartoon hews close enough beat for beat to the comic Dark Phoenix
Mm-hmm.
that when you rip that apart and put it back into a comic, it does break something.
Yeah.
Because I know what that page of Wolverine saying, "All right, suckers, you took your best shot. Now it's my turn." I know what that's supposed to look like.
Yep.
And it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
look like that.
No, it doesn't.
And nothing looks the way it's supposed to in this comic book, because this comic book exists.
Yeah. I mean, it's drawn by Ben Herrera, and, this is a tie-in comic that's basically like, hey, kids, check this out. This is, your favorite episode, just like in comic form, instead of just saying, hey, here's the comics that we base the episodes on. So it's kind of like you took a delicious sandwich and you threw it in a blender, and then like served somebody a glass of a sandwich, and you were like, here, drink this. And you're like, that's not a sandwich. What did you do to it? Because you're right.
You know what?
There are these moments like Dazzler that go to the club to see Dazzler, but it's not Disco Dazzler. It's Jim Lee Dazzler. It's like, wait, what? What's going on?
Jim Dazzler, rest in peace, victim of Genosha for
Sure.
reasons. Side note, I don't want to get like inside baseball on people, but I do know that the showrunner hated Hoxpox. So the fact that he killed off Moira in that does seem pointed, right? Like that seemed like a explicit choice.
Oh, on 97. Yeah. No, definitely.
Yeah.
For sure.
That was like okay, come on. Okay, and then here, okay. I have to say like another thing that like I just remembered and builds on my point from earlier.
Please.
You know how Emma Frost is in the Genosha stuff, which
Yes.
okay, she's going to be that's fine, but doesn't super work, whatever.
Okay.
But then it's weird that they do the thing where it's like, and look, Emma has her diamond powers now.
And then she never comes back.
And she never comes back again. Also, I think it's missing. If you want us to do the pointing and making the reference of it, it's pretty weird that instead of having Emma Frost walk out of the rubble of Genosha on her own, cradling the corpse of Negasonic Teenage Warhead, you have her being carried by somebody else out of it because she was too weak. Like, optically, that throws it off. And it's like, maybe just don't do that story beat then. No one needed to know. I'm not asking if Glob Herman was alive or dead. I assume Glob Herman lives. Like, no one needed to know if Emma was alive or dead. It was fine. Anyway, continue.
No, it's
Wait,
okay.
or was I continuing? Who's continuing?
Well, like back to this idea of the.
We don't have to explain the plot of this. It's Dark Phoenix, right?
Yeah, exactly. And but it is, just to the point of what we're talking about here about, levels of adaptation, the cover to the final issue of number 13 is that classic, it's a version by Dan Panosian of the classic cover where the issue where Jean dies. And yet they're wearing the Jim Lee outfits, and, they're standing on a sign that says the final fate of the Phoenix, and it's just so strange to see these images from the classic story be repurposed in this way, because not only is the comic referencing things that you see in the show and that adaptation, but it is also occasionally making visual hallmarks to the original comic, but
Yeah,
but not always in the same place. So like
it's very confusing.
yeah,
Like
there's that
it's hurting
classic
me specifically.
yeah, there's that classic 2-page spread of the X-Men appearing in Lalandra's spaceship, right? And they're all kind of like being like, "Oh, whoa, where are we?" Right? Well, they use that pose when they get beamed back to Earth, not when they get beamed into space. So it's like there's this disconnect, this cognitive dissonance that I'm having like looking at this, knowing what the original looks like. You know, I don't know. There's just something like very, very strange about the experience of flipping through these books.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought experiment.
And
It's not good to read. Is the
no,
bigger thing. Like Ben Herrera, say what you will about him, no Bruce Timm.
no, this is
He's not
just,
Bruce Timm.
yeah, I mean, it's just
It's
not,
rough.
I mean, even the visuals of the cartoon when I was watching it did seem, even in their limited animation vocabulary, like to be more interesting than what I was seeing in the comic. So,
Well, especially because I feel like Herrera tries to do a bit of stylization on things,
yes.
and then it doesn't work, and then you just have insane panels of Scott screaming with his mouth like the size of Dirt Nap from that one Venom crossover.
Well, I wanted to talk about that because Herrera does this thing where when especially male characters like yell or scream, their jawline is like, oh, it's so weird. Like it looks like the bottoms of the mouth, their jowls are just being like stretched out to like some insane length. It's really strange to look at.
Yeah, it's I would categorize it as a rough one.
I mean, and let's be honest, like how in the world this is an impossible challenge, you know, to try and make this comic that is supposed to mimic both source material. It just doesn't work.
See, here's the thing. I'm not interested in this because it has gone back to that medium. However, am I interested in reading Chris Claremont's novelization of X-Men The Last Stand, which adapts Dark Phoenix Saga by someone else and then is written into a novel by the writer of Dark Phoenix Saga? Yes, I want to read that book.
That it's not to say that these like endless permutations can't be interesting, but I would argue that beyond a few small things, you know, for I'll give you an example. One of the things that they don't do in the show and then don't do in the comic, which is an interesting, like very smart update, right? Is that when Mastermind is putting people back into, you know, another time period in their mind, he doesn't do it to Storm. He just does it to
Yeah, he doesn't.
Colossus.
He doesn't make Storm a slave girl.
Exactly. And you could
Which is
see that the
like,
writers of the show were probably like, yeah, oh, we can't, that's not a
we're
good
not going to
idea.
do that. Like,
Yeah.
we get it. It's not historically inaccurate, but
Questionable. Like, should we, right? Like, this is not a good idea.
is this a visual we want to put into our comic? I think
Exactly.
that's a fair adaptation question because that's not what the comic is about at this point. Like that's a weird thing to add to this weird side plot of the comic.
Exactly.
This is
So
it's like this is a Xerox of a Xerox of a Xerox of a Xerox, and it might be the most pure superhero comic I've ever read because it's exactly that, and at least it's wearing that on its sleeve and saying, yes, I know I'm a copy of a copy of a copy. I'm not new and unique and original, and you're still going to pay $1.50 for it.
I don't know. I think that if you're looking at this, you're almost looking at this kind of like etymologically as to see the origins and how these things get translated from format to format, as opposed
Yes.
to, oh, I want to read this for the joy of reading it. I don't think I could. I don't think I could look at this as its own
No.
objective, solitary thing without, the other things around it. And God forbid, there's some poor child on the earth who this was their first version of Dark Phoenix Saga, and
Oh, absolutely.
I do hope they stumbled upon the real thing at some point in their life.
I hope they stumbled upon almost any other adaptation of it in their life and said, okay, I can see where they're going with that.
Yes.
Maybe not that movie that came out in 2018 or whatever. Sophie Turner, love you, girl. Sorry you had to do that.
I do think that the first story we talked about is taking more creative risks than this, and I also think it looks better. So
yes, that's better.
I would go lower than
I would go very much like. Speaking of things that are just like pointing and referencing, X-Men Forever is at 847. I think X-Men Forever is better than this. Like, let's be real. X-Men Forever is better than this.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm just looking down to see if there's like some kind of comparison. I'll give it credit. It is not just stills from the show. So I think it's better than 869, the animation special.
Oh, and this is where it pains me, Adam.
Yeah.
This is what pains me. At 868 right now, we have X-Men Gold 1-3, Back to Basics.
Oh, interesting comparison.
It is spiritually the same as this comic.
Sure. Yeah. That's sort of like...
It is better than this comic, though. That's the thing.
You think X-Men Gold is better than this?
I think X-Men Gold's better than this, and that hurts to say. Every time it hurts to say. But, like, one, the art is better in X-Men Gold. Like, everything aside, the art is better than X-Men Gold. It is more competently telling its story, because compressing a 22-minute TV show into 20 pages is a big ask. And this one doesn't do that super successfully. It cuts out all the action of Wolverine chopping up those guards.
Yeah, that's true too.
It cut not the best part of Dark Phoenix, but probably like the second best part of Dark Phoenix Saga.
All right, so we're going to put this at 869.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we are. Man, okay. I never want to give it to Mark Guggenheim, but...
Well, he has the advantage of trying to tell a new story that's like nostalgic for other stories as opposed to needing to stick to a script.
Jeez, just give us something new, people. That's all I want. Well, I'm sorry. And this is about everything. Either give me something new or repackage that old thing in such a weird and different way that I can't help but be fascinated by it.
I feel like that was a great segue to our third and final story of the evening, which is a series we've touched upon before on the show, a series that did actually begin by adapting Night of the Sentinels, but does veer off into telling its own original. No? These are still stories from the animated series?
Adam, X-Men, the manga is just an adaptation of most of the first season of X-Men the Animated Series. This is the Colossus episode.
This is an actual episode of the show?
Yes. Yes, well, it's the episode with Colossus.
All right, then I'm going to compliment it because it doesn't feel like that. It doesn't feel like what we just read. Did you read
15 before this?
I did, yeah.
Okay, because 15, if you remember, this is 15 and 16. It's part of 15. 15 is half of the Green and Pleasant Land episode.
Mm-hmm.
And then half of this Colossus and Juggernaut episode.
And it's definitely adapting the bar issue in a certain aspect. But one of the things that happens here is that in 15, the art changes over to Oriya.
Well, the whole creative team changes because they were truly doing this like mangaka style. Like they were just having guys do the whole thing, and it changed almost every issue.
Yeah, but the creative difference between the art style of what it was doing previous, which did seem much more of like what most people would think of as a traditional
like 90s
manga style, to something that looks a lot more like Speed Racer or like Astro Boy. Like it's
It's
very, very different in its like shift in art
in
style.
the same way that manga can truly be like very easily traced back to the Disney house style when they started animation. And you can, if you look at that, you can see how that evolved into what early manga became and then how manga evolved from that. This is like going back, and it's like the manga equivalent of like a Mike Allred comic, where it's going back and harkening back to an earlier style and working shockingly well.
I mean, it's so much fun. So 16, X-Men the manga 16, Colossus, it eyes are bugging out of heads, veins are popping out of arms. There are so many hallmarks of actual cartoons here as these characters are, interacting. So the Juggernaut is robbing a bank,
Well,
and
Juggernaut's robbing a bank.
yep,
The X Mansion has been destroyed, and the X Men are concerned about this.
they don't know who did it.
They're like, man, this was a giant foot. I don't know who did this. Anyway, they find a construction man, and it's Colossus.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this is purely adapted from the cartoon, and it's very funny to see how like Ohashi, the creator on this, like gets it. Because he just has Colossus almost deadpan smiling at people, being like, I am Colossus. I am from Russia. I am here in Americas to make monies.
Yeah. I mean,
That's it.
the
That's all he's doing.
reason that it feels so like the reason I did not think, first of all, I don't remember seeing this episode.
It's absolutely the episode after the Genosha stuff.
Oh, I believe you. It's not that I don't. It's just that there's such a loony quality to this where, Wolverine is sticking his tongue out at Juggernaut and like, I don't know, like just the expressions on these characters and like snot dripping out of their noses or like tears coming out of their eyes. And like, it doesn't have the same vocabulary as you see in the animated series. And it just,
Because
it
the
feels,
animated series has no budget.
yeah, but like they would never take a risk to use this kind of cartoony language to talk to draw these characters. It just looks like so much fun,
That's the thing. I love, and it's like you get Chibi Rogue in this a lot.
Uh-huh.
You get like Little Stinker Wolverine.
The Jubilee in here is absolutely amazing. I love this version of the character. It's so cute.
Jubilee's kind of great in every arc of X-Men the manga.
Yeah.
Like you can tell, like, oh, okay, we get it. We're gonna adapt Jubilee now. She's fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun. They just do the episode and they fight, and Juggernaut tries to rob a bank. Colossus gets thrown into jail. You have a great scene where they rescue him from jail, and they're like, "Hey, Beast, you're still in jail from the from Night of the Sentinels. Would you like rescued too?" And he's like, "No, I'm good." Which again, straight out of the beats are straight out of the cartoon. The tone is not adapted from the cartoon in this episode.
No, the tone
and that's what works.
Is goofy slapstick humor. It's when Wolverine slashes at Juggy's helmet, like screws are popping out everywhere. Gambit shows up and throws his cards into Juggernaut's helmet to get him out, and his eyes are going cross-eyed. It just has this really fun sensibility to it that I just love looking at this issue. It's so much fun.
It's the only thing that this artist did for Marvel, and it's a shame because I think it's a lot of fun. Honestly, I can't find much else by this artist, like
For American audiences.
yeah, like
okay.
it may be in maybe Uriah Oshi has like done other stuff, but I don't know of it ever coming domestically, but it friggin' rules.
I also appreciate that at the bottom of one of the pages, it does specify like what the relationship between Juggernaut and Charles Xavier is, and it says X-Men's little memo. And just little cute touches like that throughout this are very enjoyable.
I just like it, okay?
Yeah.
It's just good.
It's hard to argue with this kind of an adaptation because unlike what we were just talking about, this feels original, it feels new, it feels exciting, and I like it a lot. So this is going to rank, I think, a lot higher than what we were just talking about previous.
Yeah, because this is good. The part where Rogue touches... Okay, there is a part where Rogue touches Juggernaut, and she does get giant water balloon breasts, which
Well,
is...
She's giant muscly everywhere, but yes.
Yeah, like, it only works because it's silly, but it also... As a guy who has now read all of Chainsaw Man that's been released, I can say that sometimes, manga, you're embarrassing, and I don't want to talk about you.
Mm-hmm.
And this does give that quality, which is beautiful.
A little bit.
Just listen, comics has the same problems.
Sometimes, yeah. All right, so at 268, we have the first 4 issues of X-Men the manga, which we similarly loved at the time when we talked about it.
Viz Media, like this year, is releasing the X-Men manga, and I believe they are going to include stuff that never got translated and released into the US.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Because there was more of this.
Nice.
And because the US stuff, it stops before Days of Future Past.
Mm.
And all I want is to see the manga adaptation of Days of Future Past.
All right, so we're saying this is higher than 268.
This is better than Arms of the Octopus.
I would agree. I feel like it's probably on par with like a 240, the volume 2 of Magic about Amanda Sefton, which I really enjoyed. Like just stylistically, I thought that was a lot of fun. But
at 239 is Wolverine and the X-Men, the first arc of that. And I would agree. It's like right there.
Yeah.
With those kind of stories, with like Psy-War and some of the Bendis stuff that we like, and Cross-Time Capers.
Yes.
Like, it's like, hey, this is pretty good.
I mean, just as a standalone issue, I would recommend anybody picking up this 16th issue if you find it in a long box somewhere. So
if you find any, I'm gonna boldly say, if you find any of the X-Men manga in a long box, you pick that sucker up.
Yeah. Yeah. Just snag it. It's fun. All right, so this is go ahead.
I was just going to say snag it. I also thought you should snag it.
All right, so this is going to be our new 241 X-Men the manga. Number 16 Colossus.
See, this is the kind of thing that's interesting as an adaptation because it's like I'm going to be weird and different and add to the thing that you enjoyed or have seen, not just reference the thing.
Yeah, and I think that that makes a huge difference, because it is still an adaptation of an adaptation, right? It's taking elements from things like the bar issue, but it's applying such a new way of looking at the story that we're not used to, that it makes it that much more enjoyable. So I think we've learned a few lessons today about, what works and what doesn't work. And
what things that work. What are some things that work, Adam?
I think taking bold risks and making, choices that don't make things feel boring and staid is the important part.
I think that's a thing that works. If I'm going to say a thing that doesn't work, I'm going to say sidelining Storm for most of a series. And then also shockingly removing Bishop from the series at the same time. I'm going to say that's just like weird and I don't like it. I'm also going to say it's pretty weird when you have a big moment in part 2 of your 3-part finale being that, oh, look, they betrayed the X-Men and they went with a guy who just did an EMP that's like, it killed a bunch of people. It really did. And then literally that next episode be like, actually, we're not going to talk about it. We're all cool now. Everyone is fine and no one's mad at each other anymore. I think that's a little weird. I think maybe there is value in having a writer's room that is not just all sicko freaks who love X-Men, and like maybe just have one normal person who has veto power who's able to say, y'all, people don't understand the hierarchy of the Shi'ar Empire. You can't just throw that at people. They don't know what that means. Also, I think it's very weird to offer a guy who did a genocide to join your team.
Yeah.
I think that's just like a weird. I think that's just a weird thing about the show, and I think this just show wants to get all the props of saying Magneto was right. Look at us, we're so bold and big, and all of this stuff, and then essentially have the answer being, well, let's do it Charles's way. I also think it's weird that their big final plan to stop an asteroid from hitting the Earth is just hit it a lot, and then have Magneto wake up magically and save it. I think that's a bad plan, Cyclops.
Man, you've thought way too much about this show that I have not wasted.
Dude,
no brainwaves have been wasted in this brain on this program.
That's the right way to handle it.
This is a nice, fluffy little bag of popcorn that I've watched and now never have to think about again.
Oh, I'm gonna give a compliment sandwich. I'm gonna give a good thing at the end that you should do.
Love it.
You should, and I want to applaud them for that. Put people in their good clothes. You should do that. You should put them in their good clothes and not the clothes that were just on that really famous cover.
Yeah, now we're talking. All right, that was nice. That was nice.
Look, okay. One, I'm sorry. I have to say two more things about this. Two more things. One, I know that those are the clothes he wore for all of the stories we like, but I don't think those are Cyclops' best clothes, and I thought that was a little anachronistic in a way that Jean wearing the mini dress was not. Two, I mean, that's probably Cable's best look, but it is kind of weird. Like, I was like, that's kind of out of nowhere. That's all I had. I thought it was weird. It was like, why are you wearing like 1997 ass has a scimitar Cable clothes, Cable? Man,
again, more thoughts than I ever cared to have about this.
Adam, I have so many thoughts. Why is Jubilee wearing her Brian Wood era costume?
Vampire costume?
Her vampire costume.
I don't know. I'm not worrying about it.
I don't know. I'm not mad about it. I just thought that's a weird pull.
I don't care. Zach, we should thank our patron.
I would like to thank Patreon supporter Dustin Pierce for going on over to patreon.com/Balladianum, reaching deep down into his heart's pocketbooks. $5, threw it at us, and we'll do an episode. Y'all, if I've asked you about an episode coming up, do it.
Yes.
I don't know how to be more clear.
Let us know.
I sent you got an email and probably an app notification. If you're sitting here thinking, man, why have they never asked me about the episode? I give the $5. I probably have. Yeah. And if I haven't, I'm really, really sorry.
Let us know.
But I probably have.
Let us know. In the meantime, folks,
just tell me.
You can always follow me on social, Adam Reck on Blue Sky and Instagram, Arthur Stacy on Twitter. And Zach, what are we doing next week?
Oh, we're doing Hulk.
Yeah.
We're doing Hulk now. We're being a Hulk podcast now because it was next on our list when I asked all of the people, what do they want us to fill in with? And then we picked what we actually want to talk about based on that.
All right. We'll stay angry.
But until then, folks, this has been Battle of the Atom. We hope you survive the experience.
Get it!